It looks like Optus has been the victim of a massive cyber breach. So what it looks like is 10 million users or 10 million customers have had their information data exfilled. So what does that mean? It means that information like your Medicare, like your driver's license, like your address, your residential address, your street address for postage, your contact numbers, all that type of stuff has been downloaded by people who probably do not have good intentions. It looks like they have gained access to a database or somewhere where that data is stored after a user has or a customer has actually identified themselves. When you apply for some type of contract at a phone shop or something like that, you must identify yourself using some form of identification, usually things like driver's license, passports, Medicare cards, and the rest of your other contact details. So personally identifiable information. This data has been downloaded by people who we don't know. So possibly people like you and myself have their data out in the wild now. Now these malicious actors, as they're called, have actually set a ransom for that data, and if the ransom is not met, then it looks like they will publish all that data onto the dark web or onto some type of database somewhere where other malicious actors will buy it and use it to do things like open bank accounts, open credit cards, take out loans in names of people who they have stolen maybe from this breach. So how have they done it? Well, there's plenty of unconfirmed reports. The theory with the most sort of credibility, I think, at the moment is that it has been accessed via an open API or an unauthenticated API. API is an application programming interface. What it allows is it allows for two systems, maybe one application and another application, to talk to each other. So if I have one application that needs to access the data of this application, then I will use the API of this application to download it, ingest it into this application so I can do something with it, like process it or something. So how does this affect you? As I said, people might have information about you now that might allow them to do things like open bank accounts or open credit cards or take out loans. So if you are an Optus customer, you probably would have got an email saying what has been breached or what has been downloaded by the malicious actor. What I would do if I was you is I would probably change my driver's license if it's suspected to be breached. That's something that I don't want someone else to have access to. Hopefully they haven't had access to your Medicare. If you have records of what you have previously used to identify yourself at Optus, then I would change all of those documents. So if you have a Medicare card, a driver's license, I will change those. I will just make sure to get reissued a new Medicare card, a new driver's license, just to make sure that people aren't using that as a fake ID of some sort. So all in all, the problem is identity theft can happen from this breach. So what about your password? Well, there's no actual evidence that any passwords were stolen, but that's probably the least of your concern anyway. I would probably rather my password get stolen than my driver's license and my Medicare card. So I wouldn't be too worried about changing my password, but you could probably change it anyway. I mean, there's no harm in changing your password, making sure things like a second form of authentication is enabled on all accounts. That's always helpful. So how will Optus be held responsible? Well, that's up to a large investigation. I've seen news reports that the federal government is investigating as well. At this point, we don't know exactly how the data was accessed and how it was downloaded, but really, if it was in an open API or in an open storage container or something like that, I think it's going to be a difficult investigation for sure. Because if the bucket or the storage container is open and if the API is not requiring authentication, then have the attackers actually hacked anything, or have they just explored things and downloaded it? Not saying it's still not wrong, but is it a breach? I don't know. Probably need some type of a lawyer to investigate. How will Optus compensate users? I literally just heard now on the news that it looks like they are going to fund credit report checks for people who have been breached. I've never heard of that happening before, so that's pretty good, but I don't think that is what people are looking for. I think people are now really concerned about their privacy and their data being exfilled from other organizations. Hopefully other organizations learn from this. That's what I hope the positive spin on this is, because Optus is only one organization in Australia that holds lots of company data, and we really need to be worried about wherever our data is actually stored. Small businesses, accountants, lawyers, any business really that collects data about users or employees or partners, any business really that collects data about users or about its customers really needs to be very mindful of how everything is stored and needs to really consider how they actually secure that information and where it's actually stored, how it is accessed, and they really need to have a plan on how to remediate and how to compensate in the event that a breach happens, because it probably will. Thanks everyone. I know it's not been a very good update, because we don't really have too much information just yet, but I really hope that Optus does release a bit more information, release how it happened and confirm how it happened, and tell us how they are going to rectify or close that loop in the future and make sure it doesn't happen again. I'll be back with any further updates in the next few days.